hope that the discussions were interesting and that you had an opportunity to connect and to integrate what we have been discussing so far. And as you know, we are running a bit behind time, so we don't want to eat into your lunchtime. But before we get into the discussions, I have an announcement to make, and that is that the cluster books, I think you saw the books outside in the tea room, they'll only be for sale today. They're not going to be available tomorrow. So during lunchtime, please purchase whatever you need to. Yeah, so thank you. I'd like to begin just by thanking the leaders of the small group. And because we're running out of time. So what I'll do is basically just ask them two questions. The first question will be around what is working, and the second question, what is not working, and then try to move the discussions beyond that. Just in reflecting about what we're doing, a certain phrase came from the liberation theologian Guterres, who said we need to draw from our own wells. And that's basically what we want to do, drawing from our own wells, the wisdom that has been accumulated in what is working, the challenges in what is not working, and to go beyond, as we were challenged to be able to either frame this in a social justice so that we can talk about inclusion and love. And so that will be enough from me. And so what I want to do is just to ask the presenters, starting with Klaus and then going this way, what was, the one thing that struck you about, you can mention more about what is working. What did the participants in your group?
What struck me exactly was the fact that people refused to work on that logic.
Oh, okay, good.
But essentially because you're saying we do not have, evidence is an issue that we can therefore conclusively say something is working because we do not have overwhelming evidence about that. But what could work?
Yes.
For instance, engagements, dialogues, training, workshop, direct contact among people, but more especially making sure that you do not engage even in a dialogue without the persons that are affected being part of it. So you do not dialogue around LGBTI people, and LGBTI people themselves are not part of that dialogue.
Yeah.
So it is those things, but also that given the fact that at a political level there is an alliances that are being formed between politicians and religious leaders around the exclusion of people, the demonization of people, especially LGBTI people. That's something that we must also have a way of counteracting. That the work should not just merely be Christian, as it also needs to be interfaith.
Yes.
Progressive, emerging progressive leaders should also be, counteract that, and that could be something else that can work.
Thank you very much. And I forgot to mention that I would like you to introduce yourself and before you speak. That was my fault. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Rev Deveaux. I work for the Department of Community Safety in the Gauteng Provincial Government. I'm a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to that group for those insights. Our next presenter.
All right. My name is Anna Chalmers. I work for Lekhabibo, Lesbians, Gays, and Bisexuals of Botswana. Okay. First of all, it was really, really, really interesting, the discussions that we went into. But what our group was saying is that asking, an activist what works, it's very important to realize that we should have been able to measure, whether what we are doing really works, and to bear in mind as well that we are talking about changing public opinion, changing perceptions that have been there for a very, very long time, and perceptions that influence the economy, the politics, and so forth. And that for a very long time have been able to sustain economies, and asking us whether it works or not. We would really need to to track it. We need to measure it. We need proper tools to investigate this. That's one thing the group wants to remind us. And we went on to look at what are we doing now and how is it helping us? How is it taking the message forward? And one thing that was very common in all the countries is the idea of training. I know donors are saying we've done this for a very long time, and does it really work? And what the participants are saying is that we shouldn't expect. Is there really? They ask the question: is there really a mass, a critical mass? Because when we train, you will get lucky if you get one clergy member saying, okay, I will work with you. You'll be really lucky to say that. But others would say, yeah, we hear you, but you know what? We have the congregation, we have a responsibility, and so forth. So the idea of a critical mass may not be really there, but we have to measure it. But training works in the sense that it is a catalyst. That's what the group members were saying. But the way we are doing it is that we need to create connections, because the training shouldn't be about what is gay, what is lesbian, and so forth, but instead creating connections with sexuality. And making connections with the political consciousness within different sectors, like talking patriarchy, talking race, talking culture, rather than divorcing the LGBT movement out of it as one, because that we've noticed can really get the clergy or the members of the church community to reject us. We may not access spaces as it has happened for a lot of us. And also getting the church to be aware that they need to move away from, within their preaching and so forth, there need to be some concept of social mobilization around women's movement, LGBT movement within the church. And we need to be challenging the churches to be conscious in that way. And also the question of language as well. Whatever engagements we are doing, we need to be focused on it, because the language within the church, as we have noticed, has been a catalyst to homophobia, what we call pulpit bashing. And in that way, we need to be addressing it immediately through, media engagements and so forth, and direct engagement with the pastors or specific people who are exacerbating homophobia. And also, what has worked is developing training materials, because like we said, not all the churches have engaged on homosexuality, sexual orientation, and so forth. So we need to enhance that by providing training materials for the churches, so that that training can be based on tangible evidence. There was quite a lot that was discussed, so due to time, I'll stop that for.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I think as we're listening, let's remember that it's about us. When we are saying this should happen or that should, let's own it, and let's find within the suggestions that are being given an avenue, that one or two avenues that we can enter. And so thank you for that. Let's continue, and then we'll have more of the dialogue. Please introduce yourself and share with us some of the things that stuck to you about the things that work or don't work here.
Thank you, Notando. My name is Bruce Tushabe. I represent Malawi Network of Religious Leaders living with or person affected by HIV. What struck me most in the group discussion was the continued documentation and utilization of research findings, of what really works, of the experiences that, for example, the LGBTI are going through. And we had some experience sharing from the Methodist, where students have come up with some research papers, for instance, on the understanding, on gay men understanding of God. again, it came back to the use of language, where it has been pointed out that instead of using words like men having sex with men, because it reduces one to sex to having sex with men. Rather use words like men who love men.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really striking in the conversation. But again, there was an emphasis on continued use of research and documentation to inform our programming. Another thing that struck me most was about understanding the context, because what really works in South Africa is not what might work in Kenya or Malawi, because of the different terrains that we are on. And understanding the context. For instance, if in some community, you'll find that you really cannot go there or invite participants and say, we are going to discuss LGBTI issues. That's a no-go zone. But then we understand that there are some other underlying factors. For example, you coming up with some creative innovations to say, for instance, we are going to discuss about HIV and AIDS or gender-based violence, and that is not so. You cannot divorce that from the LGBTI challenges that you want to talk about. But when you meet, then you unpack all these challenges that are faced by the LGBTI, like stigma and discrimination, like not having access to health services, and all these challenges that are faced by the LGBTI. And the other thing was utilizing the legal instruments. For instance, taking an example of South Africa, where there is a progressive law, and that actually has some provisions that protect the LGBTI. And again, how then how then can South Africans, for instance, utilize the law to make sure that the challenges faced by the LGBTI communities are addressed? And then what also we identified as being working is having community dialogues, where experience sharing is also very important, where, for instance, the LGBTI shares experience on the journey that that they have taken, the challenges. And sometimes you realize that there is that gap in actually understanding who, for example, being a gay man means to me. What are the challenges? And through experience sharing and community dialogues, there is sort of, at the end of the day, there is sort of an understanding and sort of to say that these are real challenges that are being faced. And again, understanding the context, going back to having dialogues between religious leaders and the LGBTI, and saying, bringing them back to what the theology, to the theological perspective. The theological perspective, understanding of love, for instance. What does that love mean? It has no boundaries. Love does not discriminate. What does respect and dignity mean in that context? So I felt that this was really really striking from our group.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, I'm Judith Cops from I Am. Well, I'm feeling the pressure, time-wise, because beautiful things came out of our pressure time in the small group. So the encouragement, or what is working, is if we stay real. Okay? We are real people, but the reality is we're on a journey. So like we, the Green Group, had a journey to find our place. Same as around this issue and how to work with the churches. It is literally a journey upstairs and downstairs and around the corners, under pressure. How's that song going? Under pressure. And I'm listening to my fellow brothers and sisters here, sharing beautiful things, because some things are working, like do it together, have the diversity of voices as far as possible present. Be real. For example, in Africa, if you start with intersex stories, people will grasp it far easier
Yes.
as when you come with labeling concepts of what is a lesbian, what's bisexual, what's transgender, and how do you figure it out. If you are with the humanity. Then if you start, say for instance, things like that, you need to be contextual. So when I'm in Cape Town, the gay capital of this continent, it's a total different context than when I am, for example, in Kisumu in Kenya, bordering Uganda. So how to, and then also in our strategic partnerships, we need to partner. But in the journey, it is so real that we need to counter our isolation, we need to counter our desperation, we need to counter our burnout. Because if, with that, and please, the photo, please take the photo of the green things, that camera. The green is working. The red is not working.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking, even in our, as we now prepare for lunch, I want you to know that what is working is if we encourage ourselves that we are people and each one of us is on a journey with our sexuality and spirituality. And that claiming the journey with all it entails, it's what's taking us forward together. Woo! Under pressure.
Sorry, Nontano, there's something that's, because I thought I just allowed in case there would be something that
Yeah.
emerges here.
Yeah.
But there's something else that has emerged in the group, perhaps, which is not mentioned. It's being holistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not limiting the you know, not limitedly and ghettoizing LGBTI community, but being holistic. The second thing that's very profound, it's about the reappropriation of tools that worked, perhaps not in this area, but you know, HIV and AIDS has so much resources have emerged out of there, and that the issue is about, therefore, how do we transfer
Yeah.
the knowledge that was developed in that process, and you know, be able to use it even here. For instance, the World Council of Churches engaging on the competent churches around HIV and AIDS. Is it possible? You know, that's something that could possibly work about also competent churches in relation to LGBTI, but as it were, again, remember, not to be exclusive, but be holistic, so that issues of discrimination, you know, and all of those things be on the discourse.
Thank you. I think because of our time,
burning.
I'll only give you.
Burning.
Sorry,
It's
just
burning.
it's burning. Just one comment and one
And last
comment because of
comment,
time. Let's respect that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This was very burning. I think, again, as we think about the approaches, what has worked and what I see not working very perfectly is how do we then engage the religious leaders and how do we engage the institutions? Because from my personal experience, when we're engaging with individual religious leaders, there is an understanding of the issues that we are trying to talk about. But then these individual religious leaders, they belong to a certain grouping. For example, Council of Churches. So you find that there is no position, and it's an individual saying that, yes, we agree, yes, tolerance, we agree, yes, there should not be homophobia. But then if I'm from the Malawi Council of Churches, the bishop or the general secretary will come up and release a press statement or position paper and say, we as Malawi Council of Churches, we detest this, we don't agree with this. All gays in Malawi should be killed. You know? Then so when do we strike a balance? How do we make sure that we bring these voices together. Who are we prioritizing, or what approaches should we take? Is it working with individual religious leaders, or also targeting the mother groups where we come from?
Yeah. We throw it all
Yeah.
out there. You'll have the
And
last word.
yeah, thank you. And I think what also was really, really profound for me was saying that we need to create linkages and find the LGBT movement at different levels, not just social, positioning the movement within the political, the legal, and the economic, and move beyond the social aspect of it.
Intersection.
Yeah, so create those intersectionalities. I think that was a really profound comment. Thank you. That was
Well, thank you to our panelists and thank you to all of you.
Oh,
And
you don't want to know what does not work.
sorry,
You don't
Oh.
want to know what does not work.
what doesn't work?
Yeah.
You want to say yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that.
Yeah, you want to say that.
What does not work are rules around funding,
Yeah.
which do not take into consideration that this is a process.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does not work to have people highly knowledgeable but don't know how to apply the knowledge they gain, so that even you can have workshops and have well-trained ministers,
Yes.
but don't know how to apply what they have learned. But here, the other very fundamental thing about what does not work in addition to that is the fact that it doesn't work to exclude LGBTI people.
Yes.
It does not work also. Essentially what could be rather be considered issue of consideration is what does not work is only focusing on one approach. Whether the approach is getting religious leaders being trained, whether the approach is dealing with community or church community, but that there must be a multi-layered approach rather than one approach to how to deal. So one approach does not work.
Yeah.
Yes.
No one size fits all.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and enjoy your lunch. We'll see you. Please be back exactly at 2:00. Thank you.